What?
And welcome back. It's Does It Bite, the Bug Tech podcast that educates and entertains. And I'm going to give you a hint about what Michael and I are going to talk about today. Dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant. Because the only good ant is a
Dead ant.
Did y'all like that? I know it's a little bit hokey, but
That's who I am.
But it is, and it's who we both are a little bit. And we're having a lot of fun today. But we are going to talk about ants, and ants can be serious business.
Yes.
Super, super common in the Panhandle and in West Texas, indoors, outdoors. So I want to know all the things that we need to know about ants. So talk to us first about identifying ants, like the kind of ants that we're seeing in our area.
Okay, yeah, so we have so many different types of ants. I mean, there are thousands of different species of ants around the world. And, West Texas is not an exception to the rule. We have a lot of different species of ants. We have the odorous house ant, we have the pharaoh ant, we have the Argentine ant, we have the carpenter ant. We have so many different ants in our area that it's important for us to identify, especially for treatment. So ants are an invasive species. I mean, they will come in and they will invade your home without even thinking about it. They don't care who you are. If you have protein or sugar or water in your home, they're coming in after it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I want a good invasive ant story. I want something that's going to make our skin crawl, because you have seen some wild stuff.
Oh, yeah. This was just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
We went into a house, and they said, we have ants all over our kitchen.
See, I'm itching.
Okay. I'm like, okay. I've seen ants all over the kitchen before. It's not a big deal. And I walk in, and there's these odorous house ants in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I see them on the countertop. Whatever.
Are they big ants, little ants?
The little bitty,
little bitties.
Yeah, little bitty ants, the sugar ants, quote unquote. And I'm looking at the counter. I'm like, okay, I see them here, I turn around. In the cabinets, there are thousands of them in the cabinets.
Like completely covering surfaces?
I mean, just doing their thing. Going back and forth, trailing back and forth, carrying food back and forth. And I'm like, how come you didn't call me sooner?
Like, how long? Did she say how long they had been? How long does it take to get an infestation like that?
It all depends on weather patterns, because we're just now getting into our ant season.
Okay.
So these guys have come out of their holes, come out of their colonies, and they're looking for food. They're looking for sugars, they're looking for proteins, and because we've been so dry, looking for water. And these guys came out, and they came out with a vengeance in this lady's house. So yeah, it took us a little bit to get everything figured out in treatment-wise, and we also tried to figure out where they were coming from.
Yeah.
And we found out they were coming from just outside her back door.
Okay.
So we were able to follow the ant trail as they were going in and out of the back door, like it was their own house. And I was like, guys, you're not welcome here. So Michael's here, so we're going to get this taken care of.
So how do you treat something like that? So by the time you left, do you clean all those ants out, or do you just set traps, or is it bait? Is it a little bit of both?
Right.
What can we expect if you come into the house to treat that?
Okay, so something like that, we're going to want to put down a residual kill.
Okay.
So anything that's going to kill and keep killing.
Okay.
Even after we're gone.
Okay.
But that one, we needed to get to the colony.
Oh.
So we need those ants become little pest control technicians for us. So now that they picked up the residual chemical, it's not going to kill them instantly. We don't want that. We want them to take the colony, the chemical, to kill them off. We'll also do a bait. Ants are looking for proteins, and they're looking for sugars.
Okay.
Parts of the year, they want one or the other. So we're going to put out a bait that has both of those, so they're attracted to it no matter what. So they're going to carry it back to the colony to kill off the colony. We don't know where the colony is, but they do.
Gotcha. How stealthy of you.
Yeah, that's what I do.
So I know the ants are a nuisance, but is there any other sort of side effect to that, to having ants invade, other
Yeah.
than it's creepy and I don't want to share my sugar bowl with them?
Right. Now, we do have a type of ant in this area
Yeah.
called the carpenter ant.
Okay.
Now, the carpenter
They're
ant,
big. Are they the big guys?
they're about a medium size
Okay.
ant. Most of them around here are red and black.
Okay.
So when we see those, we get a little bit concerned.
Oh.
And the reason why is because these guys act like termites. So we all know that termites will go in, eat the wood of a
Right.
structure or dead wood, hollow it out, and become structurally, inadequate.
Right.
Carpenter ants don't eat wood, but they move it out the way.
Wow.
So that's where they get their name carpenter. So they actually move wood out the way to create galleys to build their homes in.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, so when we see carpenter ants can do just as much damage as termites can. So we really need to pay attention to what's going on with that carpenter ant, where they're at, where they're nesting, are they getting into the structure of the home, things like that.
So, do you have any carpenter ant stories that you can share with us where you've seen just some miraculous, like, how did this even happen? I mean, they're this big,
Right.
but they're mighty, aren't they?
Yeah, Brent, my service manager, and I, this was, man, I want to say maybe about 6 years ago.
Okay.
We had a carpenter ant job that was just, confusing us like crazy. We didn't know where they were coming from, what was happening. So we went into a customer's home, and she had carpenter ants by her window.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, they must be coming through the window. Well, we also found carpenter ants on the other side of the room. Okay, cool. Now maybe they're walking. Well, we also found carpenter ants in a false beam about 12 feet high. So we're like, okay, now we're a little bit confused. Now, are they coming in through the window, climbing up, falling down? Well, what they were doing after 3 treatments, they were coming up through the roof into the false beam. And in the false beam, there was a crack, and there was an air conditioning vent right underneath that.
Okay.
So every time the air conditioning vent came on and the carpenter ants will fall, it will blow them across the room.
Oh,
And-
interesting.
Yeah, so we're just like,
that's some good sleuthing, Michael.
it took us a while to figure it out because carpenter ants are very, not secretive, very sleuthy, like you
Stealthy.
said. Yeah, that word. Yeah, so they are very that. So we had to figure out where they were coming from. So we knew they were in the false
Interesting.
beam, but they were coming from somewhere outside. We found a dead stump outside.
Okay.
And that's where they were nesting. So we were able to take that stump out, kill the carpenter ants off. Customer's happy.
So really the key with the whole ant situation is taking care of the source in
Right.
the colony. And sometimes that could be deep underground,
That's
isn't that
right.
right?
That's
So
right.
it's really hard, even if you're trying to treat yourself with granules, on ant hills, that doesn't always do the trick.
No, it doesn't. And, it has a great product out there
Yeah.
that works great, but a lot of times it doesn't work. And that's where we come in. We would say, you know what? We understand that you tried yourself.
Right.
Props for that. But now it's time for the professionals to come and handle
Yeah.
it. So we'll come in and we know the behavior of the ant, the biology of the ant, the culture of the ant. It takes all that to figure out what's going
So
on
what does
with
ant
this.
culture look like?
Ant culture is different from each species.
Oh.
So you have like the pharaoh ant and the
Yeah.
Order's house ant. They're going to trail. So they're going to send out their workers to go get the food, and they'll follow a certain trail.
Okay.
And that culture is they'll follow that trail, bring the food back to the colony.
Okay.
And that's it. Now, we do have an invasive, very invasive ant. It's the tawny crazy ant or the raspberry
The
ant.
tawny crazy ant.
or the raspberry ant.
I have never heard of this.
Thank God for that here in West Texas, because we haven't seen too many of those jobs, because this ant lives up to his name. It's a crazy ant. Most ants around here trail.
Right.
They'll follow paths and stuff. This ant does not. And it takes over. It can mess up electrical systems in cars, in houses. They can bite, and they are crazy. So when you see a tawny crazy ant mound, they don't just barely walk around like most ants that we see. They're active and they're everywhere. And we have those really bad in South Texas, really bad in the Houston, Galveston areas,
Really?
Austin areas, San Antonio areas, and they're making their way north. And that's what pest control technicians around Lubbock, around West Texas and eastern New Mexico
Yes.
are kind of watching, looking at the forecast of what's going on, because we now had to fight this ant, which is extremely hard to get rid of.
Wow.
Extremely hard. So we are in contact with our friends down in South Texas to figure out, okay, if these guys come up here, what are you doing to
Right.
control
Wow.
this ant? Because it's so hard to get rid of.
So besides like the crazy on the mound, are there any other characteristics for a homeowner to look for to say, I don't think this is a normal ant?
Right, just the invasion of
Okay,
the ant and
okay.
how active it is. If it gets into your home and it looks like it's going crazy, these ants are everywhere, then we might be dealing with the
Fascinating.
tawny crazy ant, which I'm hoping, I pray that we're
Tawny
not.
crazy ant.
Right.
All right, one last ant we have to talk about because it's the one ant that I think everybody like fears is the fire ant.
Oh, yes.
And they're not native to West Texas, but they're here, right?
They're here. Ants, like I said, are invasive. They move and they take over. So a lot of people think that the big red ants
Right.
are fire ants. Those are not fire
Okay.
ants. Those are either carpenter ants or harvester ants.
Okay.
They can bite as well. So you're standing in the middle of a mound and they're crawling up your leg, they can bite you. Now, a fire ant is almost pretty close to a tawny crazy ant in their activity.
Okay.
Most of these mounds are built up over the ground.
Okay.
Most ant mounds are underneath. So their mounds are built up over the grass. So if you see like a grassy area and you see dirt mounds, it's probably a fire ant mound.
Okay.
If you ever kick the fire ant mound and you just see them going nuts, you know that's a fire ant
Yeah.
mound. So that's what you really want to look out for, is the mounds that they build
Because
on top
those
of the ground.
bites can be really
They
dangerous,
can
right?
kill people. And they don't just bite like like bees. They sting one time, like bumblebees. But the ants can repeatedly bite, and they are very aggressive. They're not just going to bite you then go off their merry way. They will attack, and they will keep attacking as they're sending that attack pheromone out. So these guys will attack and go after you, and they have killed people.
I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad you're here. You're our pest control hero. Save the day.
I try to save as many lives as I can.
love it. As long as they're human lives.
Yeah. Dog lives, cat lives, all lives matter.
Well, that's another episode of Does It Bite? Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.